Good morning and good evening. Welcome to the panel discussion at the Consortium of Indo-Pacific Researchers. And this panel is on US and Taiwan. I'm Dr. Leo Lin. I'm currently serve as the fellow with the Consortium of the Indo-Pacific Researchers. I'm also an assistant professor at Mignonne University in Taiwan and also a fellow at the School of Social and Political Sciences at the University of Glasgow in the UK. And first of all, I would like to introduce a number of key people joining in this session. The first one is our acting director of our consortium, Dr. Indu Saxena, who has played a pivotal role in bringing everyone together for this event. And Dr. Indu, would you like to speak something, a few words on behalf of the consortium?
Yeah, sure, Dr. Leo, thank you so much for putting this together because I just left this Taiwan panel for you because I knew that you will be able to do this. Thank you for bringing this perspective from the region. And I have the co-chair here, the Chris Kolowski. I would like to invite the Chris for the opening remarks. Chris, over to you, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever everybody is. This has been a wonderful conference so far, and you can't talk about U.S. alliances and certainly the situation in the Indo-Pacific right now without very quickly encountering what we're going to be talking about in this panel here. And so I'm very interested to hear these perspectives, particularly from some of the great folks that we have assembled to deal with this issue that in many ways is a driver and a pacer for many other dynamics in the Indo-Pacific region. So looking forward to a great panel, and I will get out of the way and let it proceed. But now looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Chris. And Dr. Indu, do you want to speak some words for us?
Hello, yeah, thank you, Chris, and I welcome Dr. Liu and Dr. Chan and Dr. Hu for this panel. And this is our third day of the conference, consecutive, and our sixth panel. We have the 4 more panels and one student panel for this international conference. And in total, we have the 11 panels. We have the partnership with the knowledge partnership with this conference with the American International University, Bangladesh. Dr. Zahid is here, Wisconsin Veteran Museum, Wisconsin Madison, Chris is here also, and the Amity Institute of International Studies, Amity University, India, Noida, and of course the Taiwan Security Studies. And we have the endorsement for this conference from the Graduate School, Newark, the Rutgers University, USA. So thank you all and warm welcome. And very happy to see you all. Now let's proceed it. Over to you, Leo.
Thank you, Dr. Indu. So in this panel, we're honored to be joined by a number of esteemed speakers today. Dr. Fu-Kuo, who is director of the Taiwan Center for Security Studies, and Dr. Mohammad Zahidul Islam Khan, Registrar at the American International University, Bangladesh, and Dr. Richard Hu, who is the Deputy Director of the Taiwan Center for Security Studies, and also Dr. Mignonne, also serving as the Deputy Director at the Taiwan Center for Security Studies. We would like to express our gratitude to TCSS for their immense support in this event, especially Dr. Fu-Kuo. Thank you very much for your support for this event. Thank you. And in line with the theme for today, the main theme for this panel is US and Taiwan partnership amidst geopolitical competition. Our main focus is to explore how international conflicts involving power dynamics and geopolitical competitions impact the strategic goals, security considerations in the broader international framework, consequently affecting the overall geopolitical matters. So in this panel, we will specifically address the following 3 questions. The first one is, how do conflicts like the Ukraine-Russo War and the recent Israeli-Palestinian disputes impact strategic goals and security concerns of the US-Taiwan partnership in the region. Secondly, considering the changing dynamics and power changing in this increased competition in the region, how can the US and Taiwan work together with the global and regional partners to address the shared challenges and maintain regional peace and security? The third question that I would like to address is that within the context of escalating geopolitical rivalry with China, how can the US-Taiwan partnership contribute to shaping the broader international system and ensuring global security in the evolving Indo-Pacific landscape, spanning from economic, security, military, and diplomatic dimensions? So those are three overarching questions that we are speaking and addressing today. And before we dive into our discussions, please allow me to briefly outline the program arrangement for this panel. So after this introduction, I will invite each of our distinguished speakers to present for 10 to 15 minutes, sharing their insights on our panel theme. And following their presentations, we'll open for floor for Q&A sessions and any discussion that our participants may would like to discuss or raise their questions or exchange opinions. Feel free to walk. So please bear in mind that we anticipate that the total duration of this panel to be approximately 70 to 80 minutes. So before we kick off our panel, here are some housekeeping rules. First, please keep your microphones muted during the presentations to minimize any background noise. And also for any technical issues you may encounter, please feel free to use chat box. However, please kindly reserve your questions and comments for the dedicated Q&A session. And finally, we will be accepting questions from the audience. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to put it on the chat or you can hold it until the QA session. And if you like, you can pause a question using the raise hand function in the room to signal your desire to participate. And I will see how it goes and invite you to speak. And when you speak, please unmute your microphone and identify yourself. And then we will proceed to the questions and the answers provided that will be provided by our speakers. All right, thank you. Thank you for your patience. Now, let us begin our presentations. First, I would like to invite and introduce Dr. Fu-Kuo Liu, who is the Director of Taiwan Center for Security Studies. And Dr. Liu is currently a research associate of the Center for International Relations at National Zhengzhi University in Taiwan. And he also serves as the chairman, the Research and Planning Committee of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He holds a PhD in political science from the University of Hull in the UK. Dr. Liu has a very extensive background, including positions as visiting scholars at the Brookings Institution, a visiting scholar at Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, and definitely he's very capable and he's one of the top researchers in the country. And Dr. Liu, we invite you to commence with your presentation. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Leo. Excuse me. This is a really wonderful occasion. Excuse me. Actually, my colleagues and I cut into the previous session with this learning. I guess this consortium is really impressive, and I have learned the conversation before this session. I also recognize we will not have sufficient time to go over our discussion. Obviously, the topic we are going to address would be something critically important for every one of us. And I also appreciate the organizer to be able to invite my colleagues all together, because most of the time when we have a conference or a workshop as well as this webinar, I rarely see three of us that can really speak on the same panel in this particular things. So I really appreciate that we would have such an opportunity to engage, especially later we should learn from Dr. Khan, and also perhaps later also other speakers presented. But basically, as Leo started with these three overarching questions related to US-Taiwan partnership in this particular context, especially now in the Indo-Pacific region. Every one of us recognize if you are discussing any issue or any initiative, it has to come under such a shadow of a US-China rivalry, because without realizing such an overarching structure influencing every part. So basically, as students of international studies, it is very easy for all of us to quickly divide into three different levels as an analysis onto regional issue. The top level, which is a superpowers rivalry, US-China. The second level is more onto the region and also bilateral, looking into what the United States and China do since President Donald Trump's era. And we have seen probably this is a comprehensive competition. So immediately address to the overarching question Leo just indicated. The first one, especially since last year, after Ukraine war broke out, so many people in this part of the world, even in Europe, looking into the next one, possibly so many people present Taiwan as the next Ukraine. But after all these months, especially last month, when Israel and Hamas also started with this new war going over, so many people look into Taiwan situation. It seems such a crisis is much nearer than ever before. So basically, this is from strategic calculation. But in order to quickly address to this key point, what would this war imply for and also for the partnership of the US and Taiwan? I guess everyone recognizes Taiwan on one side is close security partners of the United States, but on the other side of the coin, Taiwan happens to be also a trading partner of China, since China is the #1 trading partner for Taiwan, as well as for many Asian countries. So we are standing in between such a difficult situation. So comparing with the context we learned, or the process of Ukraine war, of course, over a year also, we have learned so much strategic development. So allow me to quickly categorize this learning into probably three specific sides. The first one is a more strategic one. The second part is a more on political and diplomatic point. The third one would be purely on military on the ground, what we should be learning from this war between Ukraine and Russia. So on the strategic point, this one was something that since last year, many think tanks in the United States, as well as in Japan, conducted several rounds of war game in the Taiwan contingency. And looking into such a different perspective, we becomes much worrying about the war is coming much nearer than ever before. So on the strategic part, the US is trying to help. That is based on our partnership with the United States. So basically, it really gave lots of flavors, helping Taiwan standing firm against China in time of crisis. So on the strategic part, the US actually already increase and beef up all the effort, trying to push Taiwan to strengthen our defense capability. So on to the second point, diplomatic and political side. The US, at the same time, when we discuss Indo-Pacific region today, what President Joe Biden has been doing is really pushing all the friendly country, allies country in the large context, working together and also form different allies, security allies, as well as economic allies in the region. So it comes, of course, different form in the region, but politically, the United States has already moved much faster since 1979, when the Republic of China here on Taiwan, the US shift their diplomatic recognition to People's Republic of China. Then, since then on, almost 40-some years, this is the new high. The US is now under such a strategic competition with China, changed their policy, much upgraded the relations between US and China and Taiwan. So on the political side, the US already upgraded a number of legal support as well as policy support to Taiwan. The third point, purely on the military, we have heard lately, especially after Israel and Hamas engage into such a nasty war lately. Many people realize that Ukraine warfare probably is now diversified much away from the global attention now. So that is something to be worrying about. And then in this particular context, on the military term, the US is now delaying as a result of supplying to Ukraine as well as to Israel. So Taiwan is now in front of big China, whether the war is coming or not. It all depends on the relations between US and China, as well as the US and Taiwan. So on this particular point, there are many dimensions. Probably after our presentation, deserve us to come back and to look into what really happening here. But I would, because in the remaining time, I want to just quickly touch upon a third point, as Leo highlighted, the escalation of this tension in the Taiwan Strait. Now, of course, this is something people living outside of Taiwan may not really understand why such a tension swirling up, and Taiwanese, a majority of Taiwanese do not really fear the war is such a near to our doorstep. But basically, there is a political reason behind the scene. As we all learn, China has all the advantage, their military power, their defense expenditure, and also political influence, as well as such a big power, and relatively weak in terms of this for Taiwan. But fortunately, Taiwan also has some advantage. We have very good relations with neighboring country with the US, Japan, and others, even if we do not have any formal diplomatic relations with all of them. But just looking into such a different context, everyone recognizes facing to such a giant enemy, only one thing, that you should not really provoke China. If the tension is already very tense, the best strategy for Taiwan and probably for the United States is not to provoke China. Even if many people describe the US and China, there is almost an inevitable war waiting for both countries to move forward to engage with each other. But I should say, for Taiwan, for now, the major responsibility is trying to deter this inevitable armed conflict in the Taiwan Strait. So I do sense politically, the United States radical politicians are now pushing so hard against China, and also pushing our government in Taiwan. So as China, we realize China considers such a political gestures more like a political provocation. So the best strategy now for Taiwan, not apart from preparing for the worst to come, we need to, of course, strengthen our military for the worst to come. But I think politically, to me, more importantly, we need to look into how we are going to deter and prevent the war from happening. And probably this is something worthwhile for all of us to discuss. Let me stop here. I know the time is really ticking. Every one of us may not have that much time to elaborate further. But I think to wrap up, once again, thank you for this opportunity. And I look forward to engage with the discussion later with every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Liu, for your insightful presentation. In the interest of time, let's welcome our second speaker, Dr. Mohammad Zahidul Islam Khan. Dr. Khan is currently Registrar at the American International University, Bangladesh. And Dr. Khan's educational background includes graduation from the University of Dhaka, National University, and Defense Service Command and Staff College. And he obtained his PhD in politics and international relations from the University of Reading, England, and later served as a faculty member there. His rich background, which encompasses both academia and the military, makes his contribution to our dialogue all more significant. Dr. Khan, thank you for coming. We invite you to commence with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leo. It's good to be back, and also particularly thank to Dr. Indu and Chris for putting together this for taking us as a knowledge partner for this second international conference. We're really proud to be associated with this. I'm also very happy to see two alumni, one from Glasgow. Professor Beatrice Hauser was, I think Lynn, you might be knowing, she's probably now in Glasgow. She was in Reading. And also Professor Lee Fu-Kuo. I've been to Hull University a number of times. So it's good to be back with some of the known scholars from the known universities. But what I intend to do today is actually, as you have rightly said, I don't live in Taiwan. So the perspective of a Taiwanese will not be as reflected in my understanding of it. So what I'll do is that I'll take a theoretical view of what international relations scholars and theories say about how the status quo is holding, and then sort of tease out some of the points from there, drawing the implications for the current geopolitical contestation in the current context, particularly after the Middle Eastern, escalating this Middle Eastern conflict. So to start my remarks, first of all, managing the status quo in the cross-strait relationship remains one of the most vexing issues of the Asia-Pacific region. with global implications. Many scholars, and you'd agree with me that also some professionals, particularly the military professionals, hold that the Beijing is poised to adopt a strategy of forceful integration of Taiwan with the mainland as early as next year or by 2027. Now, such predictions rides on the evidence, among others, is the Chinese Communist Party's document calling for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. And it is also not a secret that Beijing sees the Taiwan issue as an existential issue and the unification with Taiwan as necessary to fulfill the China dream. Now, despite such strong and emotive views, the status quo continues to hold. The heightened tensions after the August 2 visit by Nancy Pelosi, the House Speaker, and also the resultant military maneuver by the PLA amidst the Russia-Ukraine war have not spilled over into an open hostility yet. However, the ongoing conflict in the European theater and also in the Middle East calls for a renewed assessment of the US-Taiwan partnership, rightly so. That is why we are here together, and to sort of see the way forward to ensure continued peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. So in doing so, as an academic, I'll first focus on the theory that underpins the current state of affairs and offer a few insights. The scholars, particularly from the realist strand, suggest that the heart of the current status quo in the cross-strait relationship lies in the efficacy of the deterrence theory. The fact that stability continues to prevail amidst the rise and intensity of domestic nationalistic fervor, both in Taiwan and in China, strengthen the logic of deterrence. Yet the likelihood of escalating tension cascading into open conflict has not diminished, as the topic of today's deliberation would suggest. Such a situation tempts us to question the efficacy of this deterrence theory that has upheld the status quo so far. Deterrence theory, as all of you would be knowing, in essence implies that the use of threat and specific actions discourage the adversary from doing something in the first place. And Taiwan's relationship with its partners, some of which are codified in legal instruments like the Taiwan Relationship Act, outlines the conditionalities of deterrence. According to this act, which is with the United States is obliged to provide Taiwan with arms for a defensive character and to maintain the capacity of the United States to resist any resort to force or other forms of coercion. Other forms of coercion is a key word also here, that would jeopardize the security or the social and economic system of the people of Taiwan. Now, all such commitments are made in the background of one China policy and the strategic ambiguity that the United States continue to maintain on this issue. Now, conceptually, the defensive weapon, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, the defensive weapon and posture of a country is viewed as a non-threatening element to stability. However, the story in the Taiwan Strait is not that simple. The fundamental difference of deterrence problem in this context is that the Taiwan Center is centered not only the defending or the defensive equipment or defense of the territory per se, as the most realist school of thoughts assumes, but rather on the issue of Taiwan's political identity. An enhanced defensive capacity and the posture may contribute to Taipei's ability to change its political status quo and thereby may appear threatening to Beijing, an issue that the realist school is unable to explain, or the realist school of thought is unable to explain. Such peculiarity implies two preconditions for achieving stability in deterrence. The first, the US threat to intervene in the event of PRC's coercion, as codified in the Taiwan Relationship Act, must be credible. And credible deterrence, as we all know, requires visible demonstration of enough military capacity backed by a sound doctrine that can pull the capacities together within a culture of decision-making reflecting strong resolve. So in short, capacities, doctrine, and culture are the key dimension of any credible deterrence posture. And each is likely to be strained in the current context of geopolitical tension arising out of the European theater conflict and also Middle Eastern conflict. And second precondition, and perhaps most nebulous but obvious one, is Washington must ensure that its action do not encourage change in the political status quo initiated by Taipei. Failure on the second, or this particular precondition, could generate pessimism. A pessimism basing would sense a closing window of opportunity to unify Taiwan, which is its stated goal, and which in turn could precipitate Pierce's military action. So interestingly, the stability of the political status quo is underpinned by the ideational factors, like the views of nationalism, identity formation, etc., which is best explained through the constructivist lens. So as opposed to the first preconditions of posing a credible threat, which predominantly rely on material forces like visibility and presence of military might, the shifting view on nationalism and identity formation, which happens very slowly but gradually and surely, is best explained through the constructivist lens of IR theory. So in summary, two conclusions emerges from this discussion. First, the deterrence theory alone, held dearly by the realist, is not sufficient to explain the complexity of the status quo that now holds in the cross-strait relationship. An in-depth analysis of the ideational factor, that, like I'm sure many of you have, most of scholars cite the change in the perception of the identity association of the Taiwanese people has happened over time after each events. That is an area which is better explained through constructivism. And the ongoing war in the Europe and the Middle East is likely to strain or elude the ability of the two key actors, the US and the China, in maintaining these two preconditions, which may contribute to heightened tensions. So how is this ongoing war likely to impact? Many scholars, including John Mearsheimer, which sort of a prominent realist theorist, contends that the great power, the United States' interest in the Europe, Middle East, and the Asia are integral to her national strategy and security considerations. However, with the US forces pinned down in the Europe and the Middle East, it is logical to assume that the US strategic objective and security consideration for the Indo-Pacific region is expected to be strained, if not diluted. At the material or the capacity level, the most obvious impact could be on the US ability to continue projecting the credible deterrence. However, according to the Marine Lieutenant General Stephen Schleckner, the Deputy Commander of the US forces in the Indo-Pacific, as of October 2023, US is yet to deploy any of its vast naval or air resources away from this region. However, the US commitment to the significant military resources to support Israel and Ukraine and the potential of escalating will serve as a strategic distraction and a potential spread of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which appears to be likely, is bound to create the situation to pin down the US resources in the Middle East for a longer period than expected, where resources can be strained. Now, the fundamental difference between the East Asian theater and the Middle Eastern theater, and to some extent the European theater, is that the former two does not include a peer competitor that aspires to rise as a great power and possibly replace the United States. Thus, the change in the US objective, strategic objective in particular, and the security consideration with respect to the East Asian, Indo-Pacific, and relegating the Indo-Pacific region to some extent, prioritizing the others, may have an impact which will be far-reaching in terms of global reordering. But perhaps the most consequential impact of the ongoing war will be at the ideational level. The first is the evidence from the large-scale protest in the Israeli retaliatory attack on the innocent civilians in Gaza, the support of the majority of the UN members for the humanitarian pause of the war, and the corresponding United States position on this issue is likely to dilute the value-based diplomacy that the United States has been trying to pursue in the region. The principles of rules-based order espoused by the United States and the corresponding violations of international humanitarian laws, human rights, and several UN Security Council resolutions by one of the United States allies significantly dilutes the United States legitimacy and the campaign of rule-based order at the multilateral level and the value-based diplomacy at the bilateral level. And the second point is Moscow's invasion of Ukraine is believed to have emboldened Chinese resolve, albeit making her more cautious in terms of employing military means to unify Taiwan with the mainland in favorable terms. Such resolves are evidenced by many assertive statements made by the President Xi in recent times and by the massive military modernization of China, as Professor Fu-Kuo was alluding to in his deliberation. It is likely that the Chinese military will continue to learn from the success and failures of these two wars to sharpen its operational level skills and employment strategy with a focus on not just conventional warfare, but also gray zone warfare. So the major outcome of this discussion, what I wanted to put forward to this panel is that the first thing that should come into our mind is that managing the cross-strait relationship stretches our ability to hold complex issues. And this is not a binary, this cannot be sort of described in binary terms. And a view through the constructivist lens of the IR theory will perhaps provide better insights and explanation of what it is and what needs to be done. Second, for a peaceful coexistence or reconciliation in whatever form that these two parties want, should focus more on who we are rather than who we are not in their identity formation and nationalism discourse. In all efforts of identity formation, attention should be on avoiding the othering each other as much as practical in terms of defining national identity. And third, beyond projecting credible deterrence, ideational factors like culture of politics and its role in the identity formation should not be ignored, though not significantly, especially done currently in the current discourse and whatever literatures are available on this. So with that, I will end my comments and I will look forward to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khan, for your insightful presentation, especially from a theoretical perspective as a starting point and connecting to the current issue, especially on US-Taiwan and the overall region. Thank you very much. And let's now welcome the third speaker, Dr. Richard Hu. He's currently Deputy Director of the Taiwan Center for Security Studies. Dr. Hu is currently also a retired ROCOP Major General who holds a PhD in political science from New York State University. In the past, he has held various important positions, including Senior Director of the National and International Security Studies at Harvard University, Senior Executive at Transnational Security Corporation of US Asia-Pacific Security Research Center, and others. His unique blend of military experience and academic expertise offers a multifaceted perspective on our panel's topic today. And Dr. Hu, welcome. We invite you to commence with your presentation. Thank you. You are muted, Dr. Hu. Doctor, please unmute yourself. Your mic is muted.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leo, for all the kind introduction. From a realistic theoretical perspective in international relations, the norm is the strong do what they could, and the weak suffer what they must. Confronting the threat from its rival, Taiwan still has the opportunity to form alliance with great powers such as the United States. However, as the realists say, bandwagoning is the strategy adopted by the small and weak. Most time, they would have to pay for it. Based on those themes suggested by Leo, I would like to give some of my rudimentary thoughts on this subject. international conflicts such as the Russo-Ukraine war and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict can have various impacts on the strategic objectives and security considerations of the United States-Taiwan partnership in the Indo-Pacific region. Those two cases of armed conflict provide unique ways to see and consider the United States-Taiwan partnership. From the first glance, they have distracted the world, United States included, from the Indo-Pacific focus, and they have tested United States' strength and shown its limitations. Let's first look at the Russo-Ukraine war. It, to some extent, has given the PRC a great moment as a rehearsal, rethinking where if China and its POA are ready to launch a full-scale invasion to unite Taiwan with China. Therefore, Taiwan has more time to upgrade its defense, while the United States could also help Taiwan better safeguarding itself. As demonstrated by the Ukrainian war, we also have clearly realized Taiwan doesn't have the luxury to get weapons systems, munitions, and supplies of resources because Taiwan is an island. In wartime, Taiwan's external supplies could be blockaded easily. Nevertheless, the Israeli-Palestinian war also has reminded both Taiwan and United States surprise attacks are possible even under the high-tech supported intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance in the 21st century. I would like to stress that from a certain perspective, the Russo-Ukraine war also begins with a sudden attack. So we are not fortune tellers and don't have a crystal ball to see our future. In terms of deter PRC's invasion, Taiwanese government has become the biggest purchaser of American arms and military equipment since 2021. But United States has delayed in delivering those military platforms and equipment, totally 19 billion of those purchases, such as F-16V fighter jets and M1A2 tanks, have been postponed in delivery at least 2 years. If United States is serious about Taiwan's security and still want to transform Taiwan into a porcupine against Beijing's bully actions, happening almost on a daily basis, Biden administration needs to reset its policy agenda, especially its priority. We really don't know how much time we have before Xi Jinping makes up his mind to take Taiwan by force. Admirals and generals of American military said it could be 2027 or 2025. Some have even mentioned, due to the Russo-Ukraine war and the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts, Xi Jinping is not going to do this quickly. While being asked questions like this one, I usually like to take an ancient Chinese philosopher's episode as an example. Zhuangzi, a scholar in the spring and autumn period in China, once upon a day, he was watching fish swarm in a pond. He talked to a friend and said, "The fish is so happy." His friend replied by saying that you were not fish. How could you know the fish is happy? Zhuangzi responded by saying, "You were not me. How will you know that I don't know that the fish is happy?" So we really do have clues about when, we really don't have clues about when Xi Jinping is going to launch a full-scale invasion against Taiwan. We wish Mr. Xi is so happy, and so he may forget to get this job done. I would also like to put forth the issue concerning Taiwan's role in the Sino-American rivalry. Donald Trump said, "America first and make America great again." Around the world, many people have said, today Ukraine, tomorrow Taiwan. In the Sino-American competition, would Taiwan and Taiwanese people's interest be sacrificed? Majority Taiwanese people don't like to be just as Ukrainians suffering so much from the war, and they want to maintain the lifestyle we have right now. We certainly want to boost our defense capability in order to better deter Beijing's smart leaders doing stupid things. However, Taiwan could still play the role in influencing the Chinese and bring changes to mainland China, because via Taiwan, it might be much easier to show the Chinese people that they could have a different lifestyle and political system. From the contrast between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait, we might have a better chance to transform China profoundly. This is the path this traveled and discussed. It, however, could still be a policy option. I certainly hope the upcoming election and the new government could adopt the policy of maintaining the status quo, which PRC is acceptable. I stop right here, and I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Hu, for your insightful presentation, and also touch upon some current issues, especially also the future issues, the upcoming elections that is taking place very soon. And last but not least, we would like to welcome Dr. Mignonne, who is also serving as the Deputy Director at the Taiwan Center for Security Studies. Dr. Jen received her PhD in political economy from Boston University and conducts research in various areas related to international politics and security. Her expertise spans topics such as national security, international organizations, and global governance. Dr. Jen, welcome. We invite you to commence with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. I wish to thank the organizers for having me. Today, I will firstly point to some key observations to be followed up by some policy propositions. Some of the following observations may well be understood by the distinguished participants here. Nevertheless, the causal effects are essential and merit our revisit to understand the root cause of the cross-strait tensions today and the escalating Sino-US conflicts. In the midst of Sino-US competition and collaboration, there are growing wind shifting on Taiwan's current policies and our potential roles. Since President Tsai Ing-wen took office in 2016, she has detoured from her winning campaign trail promise of maintaining the status quo. President Tsai does everything against the status quo under disguise in China's eyes and in the eyes of Taiwan's opposition parties. The detour has enormous impact on Taiwan's relations with the world in general and with the US and China in particular. Politically, the cross-strait tension accelerated since the prior 8-year confidence building across the strait, including the reiteration of the 92 consensus, has gone down the drain. Internationally, we have lost 10 diplomatic allies, with remaining 13 at an unprecedentedly historic low. Domestically, we have experienced democratic dictatorship that would have been earmarked as constitutional crisis in the advanced democratic societies. Economically, cooperation framework agreement, the China-Taiwan ECFA, was smeared as sugar-coated poison during Tsai's predecessor, President Ma's era. But today, in Tsai's government, Taiwan still enjoys a trade surplus with China in the amount of US $156.5 billion as of last year. Currently, China is investigating Taiwan's discriminatory treatment of 2,500 plus products from China, the outcome of which is to be announced the day before the next election day in January. Taiwan's aspiration to expand our international space has also been obstructed, with the thunder shouting louder than the actual rainfall, so to speak. Be it RCEP, CPTPP, with or without the US, and IPEF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Culturally, the Tsai government continues to wage anti-China, read China off the official and people's exchanges, even though our daily life, including Chinese cuisine, filial piety, our moral standards, and the festive celebrations all signify part and parcel of the Chinese cultural endowment, to say the least. Military tension has escalated to an all-time high since US Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's visit in August last year. The launch of ballistic missiles during the maritime exercise and significant increase of China's aircrafts entering Taiwan's airspace, totaling 1,733 last year. Now, the US-China competition has culminated into trade war, technology war, currency war, information war, and spy war. etc. In the midst of US-China competition rather than collaboration, and with a short electoral cycle, the US presidents continue to declare anti-China rhetorics, lest they should be seen as soft on China. And they continue to make detours and breakthroughs in official visits to Taiwan, arms sales, and defense mobilization. The US CHIP Act has been enacted and geared to restructure global supply chain, but the cost may outweigh the benefits even for the US business, and tentatively under suspension because of various circumstances. Finally, let me come to my conclusive remarks for the following 4 key points. Number 1, Taiwan should be an asset, not a liability, in the US-China competition. Taiwan's choosing sides one way or another would only deteriorate the US-China competition. Number 2, Taiwan should not fall prey to fight a proxy war and become the most dangerous place in the world, as The Economist magazine had it. Number 3, was a catalyst of melting pot for diverse cultural understanding and international trade. Taiwan could contribute, as during the Ma Ying-jeou administration, in which I had the honor to serve. We had the pleasure of collaborating with all APEC members, including the US and China, to initiate and collaborate regional schemes, including the paperless trade and disaster prevention, among many others. Number 4, some confidence building measures should be in place so that unwarranted skepticism would be in command with incidental events. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I wish all the best to non-exclusive schemes of things in the Asia-Pacific region, which could be extended to all-inclusive human endeavors. Let our long-term vision of humanitarian efforts transcend short-sighted competition or unnecessary hatred without due and consensual rule-based international order. With this, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jan, for your wonderful, insightful presentation. And especially Dr. Jan touched upon a different perspective, such as ECFA, and also share some the common issues like Dr. Khan touching upon the visit of Nancy Pelosi. So there are definitely some overlapping and some different issues that our 4 speakers they're pressing on. Now let's open the floor for a Q&A session before we close this panel. So any participants who would like to raise your questions? Well, this is a very interesting panel. I believe that there are questions from participants. I do have questions myself, but I would like to give the chance to our participant first. Thank you. Anyone?
Yeah, can I have a question for Dr. Chen?
Yes, please.
Yeah, how are you? I've got a good friend here, Professor Fu. I just met him last month. We're together in a conference in Kuala Lumpur on ASEAN. Great to see you, Professor Fu. How are you? All fine? Yeah, good, great. Yeah, Dr. Chen, I have a question for you. Yeah, you said China should not play the proxy war between China and USA, the war at all. But how are we going to ensure that you don't fight a proxy war? But What can you do about that if there is a war breaking out? You said the ballistic missiles were fired. The 700 more aircraft shortage were launched against Taiwan Strait and Taiwan Islands, so on and so forth. And you are not a political entity as such. You don't have the state sovereignty. So how are you going to ensure that?
Thank you very much. Do I understand that the question is directed to me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, Dr. Chen, yeah. Great.
Right. I have been,
Sorry for...
I continues to be a student of political economy under political science. So economists will not claim me as an economist. Right. It is very, how do I say, very frustrated to think of war vis-a-vis peace. We're never in the business of waging war of any kind, whether reluctantly or taking the initiative. I think human historic lessons should guard us against this, because we are not animals of lower grade animals. We as human beings need to do problem solving, conflict resolutions with the learning of our history. So how do we prevent proxy war? I think from the outset, I have pointed out, by not choosing sides. All Asian countries, most Asian countries, as far as I know, have come to Washington or on the occasion of ASEAN summit, have reiterated that they are not interested in choosing sides. And this, it was done quite well by Singapore, Thailand, and India, among many others. They have reiterated their wish not to choose sides, therefore not engaging in the proxy war. Thank you.
Good answer. Excellent. I'm so satisfied about that. Yeah, thank you. Great.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, and thank you, Dr. Chen, for your response. Any other questions? Feel free to drop your questions in the chat as well.
Okay. If there is no other question, can I go for one more? You allow me, Dr. Leo?
Sure, please. Thank you.
Do you allow me to ask one more question? Yeah, if so, this is, sorry, I missed your presentation, Dr. Fu, Professor Fu. Sorry for that, but I listened to General Richard Hu. Yeah, I think the question is meant for both of you. Why did this 92 consensus failed? Who's basically responsible? Is it China or Taiwan? What happened actually? It was going fine, but why all of a sudden it broke down? As you said, it has gone down the drain. But who is more responsible for that? And why did it fail actually? What is the process that resulted to its failure actually? I think Professor Fu also can intervene on that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, 1992 consensus hasn't failed from my perspective, because it is still working. Well, as long as the new government, they endorse 1992 consensus, even if it's a trash, well, the other side, if they believe in 1992 consensus, they think of it's still functioning, well, then there's an opportunity. Both sides could get together friendly. So from my perspective, it's depend on the angle of view, especially from its function. Actually, it's still working. That's my answer.
But the present literature that I read, it is saying that it has failed. the latest literature on this from the American side, they say it has almost failed. That's how I knew, but fine, that's your perspective. That's fine, sir. So, Dr. Fu, sorry.
Add additional statement on this 1992 consensus. I like General Karim's, the very knowledgeable scholars in the region, always put up a very challenging question to us. Basically, the reason why people realize 1992 consensus may be dead, it is because our current government believes there is nothing about 1992 consensus, which is shared very much with the United States, trying to deny the importance of a 1992 consensus. But this special consensus was generated between the previous government in Taiwan and also mainland China. So because we have a democratic party votation, the current government denied this consensus, while the previous one. But more importantly, as echoing General Hu's comment, because currently, looking from Beijing's perspective, the only connection between mainland China and Taiwan, 1992 consensus, happens to be the only solution. So the next government, whichever wins the election, if the government does want to connect with China, it has to consider 1992 consensus very seriously, even if with new definition. But I think, interestingly, CCP, Communist Party in China, always consider more nominal consensus understanding. If any parties wins the election in Taiwan, as long as wearing this 1992 consensus, they may start talking to each other. If somebody said that there is no consensus, no talk. So the problem is critically important. So if you believe there is no consensus, then the tension may be gradually increasing. But I do believe the majority of Taiwanese people, even if they do not know how to define the consensus, but at least they know this is useful for Taiwan and China to dialogue. So I think probably we can describe this is something connecting Beijing and Taipei for the time being. The only one channel to connect. But thank you.
Excellent. Great response. Yeah, you are a learned person. Yeah, Professor Fu. You're a great scholar on Taiwanese studies. Great, sir. Thank you. I'm very satisfied with that answer. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, General Kazim, and thank you, Dr. Liu, Dr. Hu, for your response. And we have a few minutes left. Any questions?
Liu, I have an observation and a question with Dr. Liu and Dr. Zahid. Dr. Zahid, you touched upon the theoretical perspective of the Taiwan of deterrence. And my question is to both of you that U.S. deterrence, do you see that the U.S. deterrence in Taiwan is strengthening without any diplomatic relations, recognized diplomatic relations to Taiwan? And what is the impact of China's strategy towards Taiwan when U.S. is strengthening deterrence there in terms of expanding the security cooperation with Taiwan?
Right. Thank you. I think, let me just go back to, one of the comments that was made before and regarding this consensus and whether it holds or not hold, the change actually underpins what I was trying to make the point about, is a change in the political culture that sort of saw the shift. So the focus on the efforts, which is particularly based on deterrence and not so much on the identity formation or the political identity formations. which is the battle of narratives, which is in the area of battle of narratives. That seems to be lost in the long run. That is why you have a change from with a political change, you have a change of perspective, and the whole thing falls apart. So the fundamental problem with a realist way of seeing things only through the deterrence will work, and that is how it will make sense for the Chinese, or the other way around. That is where it needs to be changed. That is the point I was trying to make. If you see the Ukraine war, and also in the case of Middle Eastern war, there is a lot of things which is putting the use of force in constraint, just because of the narratives which is going on in different phases, in different capitals, in different medias and everything. So that is a particular domain which needs to be cultivated to ensure peace. This is the first thing in response to the previous sort of argument on whether the 1990 consensus exists or has been changed because of the political cultural change. The second point that I want to make actually is that there are very good points that came into. And one of the comments was that the Taiwan has the potential to transform China into something better. And then there was another contentions that Taiwan should not be viewed as a liability, but an asset. But then the corresponding question to that is, how do you transform China without disrupting a systemic level? Because for me, as a structural realist or a theorist from a structural view of the global governance, there is an implication of such transformation at the structure, at the systemic level. So you have to have a transformation mechanism, and through, as Indu was telling, through a diplomatic channel, which could be bilateral, which could be unilateral, which could be person to person, track 2, track 1, whatever. Even in the case of third diplomacy in South Korea, what happened, the initial response of China to South Koreans were diluted through some track 2 diplomacies and all those kinds of things. So the challenge is, yes, the democratic ideals of Taiwan or the values that they hold, or some sort of culture that they have, has the potential to transform China as well. But how do you do that without affecting a systemic level balance of power? That is the question, and that is where we need to be innovative in defining policies, defining actions, and defining and throwing sort of balls to play with different players, and obviously within the regional security complexes. So these are the two things that I thought it should be. And obviously, somebody was saying truth is always relative. You really don't have a truth unless, as a metaphorically, that fish in the pond was cited. Truth is relative. So with that relative state of truth in the context, we really have to be very sharp in making the narratives which holds the parties towards a peaceful way of solving this, as opposed to whatever discussions we make that the deterrence has to be there or forces will solve the problem. That at the end may not take us to the right path where we want the region to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khan, for your response. In the interest of time, I think it's about time to conclude. I would like to thank you, everyone, for your participation in today in this enlightening discussion. We've tackled pressing issues presented by our 4 panelists. So my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed panelists, and also the consortium of the Indo-Pacific researchers and the Taiwan Center for Security Studies for everyone's contribution. I also appreciate the active involvement of all the participants, and together we are contributing to a more secure and stable the Indo-Pacific region, and the promising future and in the upcoming year. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day and evening. Thank you.